Hi, everybody. This is Tevis. Welcome to Game Changer Chats. Woo! Game Changer Chats. I'm so excited to be here this week. I don't know. This could be your first time you're joining me. It could be maybe you've been along the whole time, but this week is super special because, well, they're all special. The woman I'm about to share with you, her name is Rebecca Singer. She is an author. Is that upside down? And this is her book. She is an author. She is a shaman. She is a healer. She is a teacher. She is really a lifetime of exploring what it means to align with yourself. And part of what inspired me to ask her to join this, I think if you look at who we've always had people who, whether they were doing it the way the man says, and then they woke up one day and said, screw this, I'm going to do it my way. Or they've really been a rugged individual all along. There's a common theme of what it is to live outside of expectation, right? And what it is to create such a relationship with yourself that you always have a navigational true north. And I met Rebecca 3 years ago or 4 years ago, and really instantly knew that I was in the presence of someone who had been asking herself the same question with some success. I would call her an adept in many ways. So, Rebecca, welcome. Thank you so much for being here. Woo! My pleasure. I will warn the audience, we are known to be very goofy and sometimes slip into Southern accents. And so this could be goof fest. We could just do some facial massage, which I know all of us need because we're yammering so much. But first and foremost, I want to unpack you.
Okay, let's go.
So my favorite question to start these convos out with is, what was your favorite thing to do as a child?
Oh, well, I loved sitting outside, like where nobody could find me, in nature, playing with sticks and rocks and stones and tree branches and whatever was around. And as early as I can remember, that's where I felt best, and that's where I wanted to be. That was one of my favorite things.
Yeah. And how did that strike your family? Was that outside of what they thought a little girl should be doing? I mean, did they ever try to push back on you?
I really have very little idea of what my family thought I should be doing. My family was physically present, but mentally quite and emotionally very absent. Yeah. So all I did know from them is later on, I should be achieving things. That's all. Yeah. Later on, it became clear. But when I was a child, it was kind of like I didn't have a clue what they thought.
So you were really connected to your own world.
Oh yeah, I was connected to my own world, and that was fine with me. Yeah, I mean, that's what I knew, so it was fine.
Yeah. So when did they begin to express expectation? When did you become aware that they were like, you better achieve? And what form of achievement was expected, do you think?
Well, I remember crying and crying and crying when it was time for kindergarten. My mother tells me that I was sure that everybody else already knew way more than I did. And so I must have gotten something ingrained in me by kindergarten time. And the message was, you better be good at it. And to their credit, they introduced me to, I mean, as a child, I took horseback riding lessons. I took ice skating lessons, played the double French horn, took ballet lessons. But I had to be first in the state as the French horn player. I had to have, if not first place, second place, English, writing, jumping. I had to be in the Nutcracker Suite Ballet every year. I mean, it was just not all right to just go take a class and have a good time. Yeah.
So you couldn't just be a whatever in the Nutcracker. You had to have like
No. I had to have well.
Were you a snowflake?
Well, I did have years of snowflake, but it was short-lived because I was at the head of the snowflakes, and when when it was my cue to came out, I came rushing out, on my tutu with my arms behind me, and I ran right into the opposite wall of the stage because oh, lights were so bright, and I got this nosebleed, and I was off stage, like bloody up my tutu.
Wait a minute, so you were the bloody snowflake?
I was the bloody snowflake. Yeah. So they didn't let me back into the Nutcracker until I had a main role, which my sister was Claire, and that was I can't remember. I blocked it all out. I think Snowflake did me in.
Yeah. So when you look back at this arc, though, right, that you had an early childhood deeply connected to yourself and to nature, and then even as early as kindergarten, which I love that you acknowledge an awareness that by kindergarten, you already had a feeling that you better be the best.
Yeah.
Because from what I understand from creativity studies, our socialization is such that those expectations really begin to imprint and influence us as young as 2 years old.
Oh, I think even younger.
Yeah.
But yeah, for sure. Yeah.
So, so high school arc, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm curious because we could probably hang out a couple places with what I've known of your life, right? But let's put it this way. I don't know a lot of 70-something women who have lived in Siberia, spent years in spiritual practice in Costa Rica, studied for over a decade the Lakota tradition, right? And have as many stories of the types of teaching and facilitation and really working with human beings in both a spiritual and a cognitive behavioral kind of way. Like I don't bump into you everywhere I go. I'll put it that way.
God.
Well, so somewhere it'd be what?
That would be really freaky to bump into anybody everywhere.
Yeah. Right.
Oh, so, you again. Okay.
So somewhere between being this sweet, well, you were probably feisty then too. This young being connected to the earth and connected to herself, moving into the world of expectations. Somewhere through that evolution, you have carved out a way of being that really is evidence to not only a lifelong commitment to staying true to yourself, but also to figuring out how do you support others in doing that. Where do you, how did that all happen?
Well, I have to say that I have a feeling that I was born with a spirit that was going to take me down that path no matter what. So, people think that our modern psychology tells us that our families kind of shape us and mold us. And what I think is that our families provide an imprint. And then later on, we're able to work through that imprint and look at it and then step out of it and recreate an imprint, maintaining whatever roots we want from the original template. And for me, I started having kind of spiritual openings from the time I was a child. And they were experiences that I thought everyone had until I started finding out they didn't. So I had kind of two things going on. I was like, doing the things you should do, going to school. And then I was very interested in being an actress. I had all this going on at the same time. I had these experiences that were like, somebody tell me what's going on here or take them away from me, because they were just, people think that spiritual experiences are always extraordinarily wonderful. Sometimes if you don't understand them, they're just hard. And so I think the real turning point came from me when I was in my early 30s and I met my teacher, and I finally found someone who could understand these experiences. And then slowly, like I've had many, many careers, but they all kind of, and good ones that I feel really good about. And then I have the Chinese egg roll job where I was just stuffing the egg rolls all day long. And
Oh, well, we all have those.
let's just say a wide variety of experiences.
Yeah.
But it all led to this path of what I was born with. And it just seemed like kind of not inevitable, but I don't know if I'm making much sense here, but I think that leaping off of cliffs, taking leaps of faith is what I was shown as a way of life. So to me, it was how you did things. So when I met my teacher and she said, well, let's go, I said, okay.
Yeah.
Does that make any sense? Was that coherent?
Well, okay. So I'll slip you the $10 I promised you for plugging the model behind the book. I'll Venmo that afterwards because you just met your contractual obligation. No, you literally described, I think, what the process for all of us is in living authentically, which we have all that stuff that we come into with our parents. And yes, it influences us. And yes, it's a container through which we cultivate skills. But at some point, we have to ask ourselves, what is really in my roots? What is really true of me? Yeah. And how do I step from this container that in many ways I may be very grateful for and proud of? How do I step from that and now begin to bring into life this being that I was born as?
Yeah. I think she was kind of hiding in there all along, because I've kind of had this funky spirit that was, she early on, I would say my spirituality, I guess would be the right word for it, took the form of rebelliousness and taking, when I look at them now, kind of insane risks. Like a friend of mine and I, we took off barefoot with a quarter in our pocket each to hitchhike from California to Santa Fe, New Mexico, to prove that there was a God. I didn't know about goddess at that point. We were really young. And like, if there was one, we'd make it. And if there wasn't one, we wouldn't. And that was the, just things like that were like challenging my life, I guess, in an effort to, like, it was like a prove it kind of attitude.
Yeah. Thinking in degrees, though, I love what you said. She was there all along.
Yeah.
Because I believe in that. I believe that she or he or they or whatever that essence is, that spirit, that spark, they are always there. Yeah. Yours was really noisy. Mine was pretty noisy too, but we won't talk about my stories right now. I want to focus on you. Do you think that most of us, if we look at the ways in which we have experienced discomfort in our lives or questioning in our lives, do you think that all of us have a restlessness of the soul that's kind of asking us, will you finally pay attention to me?
I think that all of us have, it's really hard for me to put this into words. I think all of us are born with this kind of, I look at it kind of like a crystalline template in front of us. It's set out, but it's flexible. And it's almost like there's little, like it's like a little web of lines. And there's certain points in our life where if we're listening, we go, oh, I'm on my line here. I'm like, yeah, I'm where I'm meant to be, supposed to be, is the feeling. It's like this click inside. And I think we all have it. I don't think we're taught to listen to it. And I don't think it's predestined, but I do think there's certain points where you have a choice, and the choices can be really important as to whether you really follow I don't know if it's your soul's path, but I don't know a better expression for it.
Yeah.
I'm not sure everyone has it. I mean, when I look at the general population, we probably shouldn't go there. I'm not sure.
I know. This is where I'm like, oh, everyone has it. And
I'm like, yeah, you have, yeah.
So while you were talking, the questions started to take form in my mind around whether or not it is necessary, like if part of listening to that voice usually involves a break of some kind, usually involves a disruption of sometimes. Because if you study the hero's journey, the heroine's journey, like all that crap, right? There's always some kind of right, some kind of rupture, and sometimes it's external, right, which is right now is such an important moment for all of us to ask ourselves,
yeah,
is this my wake-up call, right? Do you think that rupture is part of evolution, is part of
yeah, I think it has, yes. I mean, look at the way that landscapes are formed. Look at the rupture is part of the process of evolution. And we are going to run right up against something in our lives that says, hey, wake up. And sometimes, I mean, for me, it was both very difficult times externally and very difficult times internally, and times that left me really no choice but to have some kind of faith that they would be resolved and I could get help and I would get through them. But without those, yeah, it's also that rupturing helps to build what I would call muscle. Yeah.
yeah. So I hear prayer too.
I was taught to pray by my first teacher. I really didn't have a way to pray. Well, I left the temple when I was 8 because I didn't like the rabbi, because he didn't like it when I laughed in silent prayer. So I said, not my guy. And went outside and stole all the apples and I just refused to go back. So I didn't pray until I met my teacher. And she taught me to pray out loud, which I really, really liked, because I felt like because the vibrations of voice were going up and adding to the vibrations of the world. The only hesitancy I have about going into those ruptures is that I feel like our culture puts those kind of difficulties on a pedestal, and like there's some way we love suffering in this culture.
So say more about that, because I'm curious, like putting suffering on a pedestal. Say more about that. I think that's an interesting idea.
Well, pleasure and beauty and love and happiness and joy, I believe, are every bit as informative as pain and suffering are. And
sure.
yet we just love to hear stories of people who went through hell and now they're ta-da. Yeah, I mean, which is, I get it, but what about people who just revel in the incredible beauty and magic and wonder of the world? I mean, those aren't the stories that fill the news.
Yeah.
And we might be a lot better off if they were.
Yeah. It makes me think about some of the skirmishes, the philosophical skirmishes that happen, I think, in every form of spirituality I've ever studied, that it's like, is life suffering that you have to transcend, or is life nectar and beauty with moments of challenge?
It's both.
Yeah.
It's both, and it's always been. I mean, it's both.
Yeah.
You can't. That's why although I think ruptures are necessary, I think they're a part of a bigger scheme, and life is all of it. And what I'm just going to say, what I aspire to do is to be able to be with it all.
Yeah. To hold it all. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, for
Because
sure.
you don't get to pick and choose in your life.
Yeah. You've talked about your teacher a couple times. And so I know a lot of people are seeking, and a lot of people are stepping forward and saying, I can show you the way, etc. And I think a lot of times we have this idealized notion, right, of my teacher is going to be this or going to be that, whether it's they're going to be really attractive or they're going to be really successful, right? Like the Tony Robbins model, right? Like there's even in seeking wisdom, we are bringing our projections of what should be. And I know that your teacher surprised you a little bit. And so, like, let's hear about that. Can we tell us about who she was?
Yeah,
and how
well, Patricia was, when I met Patricia, she was probably in her 50s or maybe late 50s, part Irish, part Lakota, weighed over between 200 and 300 pounds, smoked like a chimney, had this little frazzly, curly white hair, this big round face, and this big cherub smile. And, she'd come to the door in her nightgown sometimes and be like, oh, sorry, I forgot to have my coffee. I mean, she was just nobody's idea of a healthy looking. Yeah. And she was, also she was hilarious. I mean, she would look at a student and say, you know what, eat shit and die. But she'd say
explain that.
But she'd say it in a way that, I don't know, she could get away with it. And then she'd say it and then she'd just laugh her head off because, she'd look at she was also gentle as could be. And the thing that she taught, which I loved the most, was don't cling on to me. Like, here's your lessons, go do them, come back when you're ready for more, go live your life. And, I did become a part of a very small group of 5 people who assisted her for 8 years in her work. But other than that group of us, she would not allow followers. She would not allow herself to be set up as a
guru. Yeah.
No, I mean, no.
Yeah. I think that's really instructive, because we're definitely in this moment of what I call the Gurupreneurs, right? Yeah, I know. I coined that phrase. I love making up phrases. It gets so much fun. Yeah, a lot of Gurupreneurs, and a lot of guru seeking. Like someone's got to have the answers, and embedded in a lot of that is oftentimes a dependency model.
Right.
How do you keep them hooked? In fact, the first time I went to coaching school, which was like 15 years ago, right? So many of the classes were overtly, how do you keep them hooked? How do you keep them coming back for more? And it made me want to just, I was like, this is disgusting.
Mm-hmm. It is disgusting.
Yeah. So you've stayed true to not putting yourself out there as a guru. And I think a lot of times when I think about the teachers I've been drawn to, they haven't been the famous ones.
I mean, I don't know, other than Christ, he had a really difficult ending.
Where's Maeve Rod when you need her, right? She's a characterized version of Mary Magdalene, right? We need Mary Magdalene to speak to this.
I mean, I've totally forgotten the question. What was the question? I got caught up in Christ on the cross, and then I went to Monty Python.
But as a teacher, I'm sure there's been some pressure for you, because I get that pressure too. Like, why aren't you creating a platform? Why aren't you this? Why aren't you that? And the reason I think this question is relevant, right? Because I think that while people are looking for ways to use this rupture to more deeply connect to who they always have been, right? While people are using this rupture as kind of a no excuses, it's a no excuses moment, right? There's also obviously a sense of, well, what if what I'm drawn to doesn't look like what the world says should exist, right? And so when you become a coach, or you become a facilitator, or you break out from your corporate job and you're starting something else, a lot of these shoulds come with you. And in your space, obviously, you should build an empire. You should get people addicted to you, etc. And how have you resisted that?
I think that I haven't, honestly, I don't think I've wanted it. I've wanted to do do healing work with people. But in the end, what I'm trying to teach them is that they're their own best healer. But, you know, there's times we all need help. The people I've known and worked with who are famous, it's really hard to keep, I don't know how to say this, a clean spirit and get mashed up into fame. I'm not saying it's impossible, but especially in our culture, the most delicate, vibrant, beautiful wisdom just gets like into this machine and spit out in a way that it does not inform people. So I've been really, you know, I've been good about having a website. I've been good about networking. I've always trusted the old ways, which is word of mouth. And wherever I've lived, whether it's been in Oregon or Costa Rica, or, you know, when I've gone up to Canada, or, I mean, I've worked in a lot of different countries. It's, you know, it's mostly because somebody invited me there, and by word of mouth invited 20 people to have sessions, or it was time for a ceremony. And it's kind of happened organically. I mean, not a marketing thing, but a minimum of it. And I feel like I've done my work. I mean, I do a newsletter. I wrote a book. I've just written another book. When I was young, I wanted to be famous. When I was acting, I really did want to be famous. And then I started looking at my life, and like when I was making a lot of money, it was all going up my nose in the form of cocaine when I was really young. So I don't know that I would have dealt with fame too well. And I don't see fame and spirituality as being
a
good fit. The people who are doing work that I love, or they're all working under the radar.
Yeah.
I'm not saying really well-known healers haven't done amazing work. They have. But it's rare to keep your integrity.
Yeah, well, yeah, because we could apply what you're saying to healing. We could apply it to business. We could apply it to any field, right? That kind of fame and attention and power and access to resources challenges integrity in some ways.
Yeah, and it becomes about money on some level and things, stuff, and oh well, accumulate this and you'll feel that, and yeah.
So I know I've told you this story, but I'm going to share it just because I do think it's germane. So there's this guy, he's like in his 30s, and he does a series on YouTube on the Stoics, right? And I think the Stoics are fascinating. I think everything's kind of fascinating. And I watched one after the other, and he's talking about, oh, and this is what this guy said, and this is what that guy said, and I'm the history nerd. I'm like, oh, this is great. And then it rolls into a podcast, and he's on a podcast with another dude, kind of Brooklyn hipster, and they start talking about the power of great thinkers, right? And they're like, yeah, like, why didn't Ram Dass ever get as famous as Tony Robbins? I mean, he could have really built a machine. And I was like, oh my God.
Yeah.
Right. And the reason I think that's so interesting is that what our teachers are teaching us, right? Whether they call themselves a healer or they call themselves just a teacher, right? Is that the measure of our lives is not how many likes that we get on Facebook. And then we get into the echo chamber, and we get into a lot of the thought spinning that is really bringing us into a vortex of either you're in my circle or you're not, which is what's happening online. And I know that no one can ignore the power of that. But when we judge our teachers that way, then we're forgetting that the whole point is to foster greater alignment with self.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And greater alignment with self and source, I would say.
Well, so I know a lot of your work has been to help people, and you've worked with a lot of incredibly successful people. And you've seen what that break from source or what that break from self can wreak. Yeah. What would be some things that you would share with folks? Because people are kind of spinning up in the ether through the challenges and difficulties of right now. And you can try to meditate, you can try to medicate, right? Yeah. You can complain, you can vent, you can yell at your kid or your spouse or the person you're ordering something from online, right? So there's all these feelings, right? And I think there's a shared acknowledgement on some level, on some basic human level, that we have really gotten out of alignment in a significant and a disastrous way, a potentially irreparably disastrous way. And so I'm just curious, from your lifetime of working as a teacher, facilitator, healer, first and foremost, it's kind of two questions. How are you seeing what you're being presented with now as being distinct and different, or maybe the same and just enhanced as what you saw previously, point 1 and point 2, because I'm itemizing, by the way. Yeah.
Question. No, go ahead. I got the first one. Okay.
Okay.
But
That's point 1.
Second part.
Okay. Point 2 is just if you could share something that you feel like can be helpful for people.
Well, that's all. Those are thanks, Tevis. I think it's time to go into the Southern accent.
Do you gotta go now?
Goodbye. Like I said, you're your own best healer.
Go figure it out. I don't want to deal with you. Well, that's kind of funny.
No, I actually do have. I have a thing to say, but go on.
Well, it's kind of funny because the first major that I declared in college was psychology, and then I thought about it. And I was like, I don't want to hear people's problems all day. I'm gonna be like, go get your act. Queen of coaching here, right?
All right. Well, so
okay. So the first, go ahead. The first question was, how do you feel like people are coming to you differently now, or the same?
Well, I think we're in the middle of a massive disruption and shift and call to wake up. And I do mean massive, that people are being asked, encouraged, shown, scared into, pushed into taking a look at what it is we're doing on this planet. And there are those who will get still and get quiet and go in and have the courage to ask that question individually and collectively. And there are those who will run around like nothing's changing. And then there are those, unfortunately, too many at the moment, who just get lost in fear. So they're always reactive. This is potentially an amazing time to redream ourselves. And why I say that is that everything that man has contributed to this planet was a thought first. It was an idea before it was manifested into a form. And it's pretty obvious that a lot of the systems that we've created aren't sustainable. And the question is there whether we have the guts, the will, the fortitude, the adventure, and the ability to dream other systems and dream other lives. And it can't happen without visioning, because you have to have a vision before you can complete it, begin to build it. And I feel, I'm not even sure if this was your question, but I feel like the best use of this time is in visioning. Like, it doesn't do any good to have a slogan of, well, love is the answer, or let's just live peacefully, if you don't have a strong vision of how, what does that look like? And if you're not working on it in your daily life, that's where you got to start. But that is no longer enough. I mean, that may have been enough at some point, but we are all interconnected. And if we don't get that, we're going down,
Yeah.
It's right in front of our faces, as is uncertainty, which humans hate. But hey, guys, that's what life is. So it's like, are you going to get on the ride, or are you going to get stuck in your little bumper car?
Yeah. Well, I've heard that actually comment on, and that's not the question that I asked, by the way.
Oh dear.
But,
On a tangent.
it's a great topic because
I
I've heard it comment. What?
I thought I misheard you. I heard what I wanted to hear. What can I say?
You're just making stuff up. Anyway, I've heard it commented that like, let's say the age of Aquarius, whatever you want to call it, like from the 60s until now, or you could go further back and say, with the artistic of the early parts of this century and a lot of kind of utopian thoughts, etc. So from that has been born some spiritual seeking and kind of an opportunity for personal searching, right, across a breadth of ideas and traditions, but it has been very me-centric, right? It's been very much, right? It's been very much outside of community. Like, yeah, you've got the Sangha and some yoga and some Buddhist, but a lot of it is not interrelational, right? A lot of it is not, how do we create society around these ideas?
Yeah, well, I mean, the virus is an amazing potential teacher because it doesn't care what race you are, what country you're in. It's a potential amazing connector. We don't get it, but it could be. It could be like, oh my God, like we all need to work with this together. I mean, it's a. What was your question anyway?
I was going to get back to it. I wasn't going to let you off the hook. I was going to get back to it.
What is it?
Okay,
Bring
we'll get back to it. And maybe I'll be more specific to help kind of ground you. I have heard you comment on grief and comment on the unmooredness of many of us in this time. And so whereas 5 years ago, people may have come to you with one set or potential sets of things that they wanted to work through, I've heard you comment on the profoundness of grief and lostness. And our culture, again, I'm not here to glamorize suffering, but our culture has kind of an aversion to grief or praise, as is often called, grief or joy, right? And so can you talk about that? Because I brought it up in March to my team, and my team were like, what's she talking about? Grief, right? And 3 weeks later, it was on the cover of HBR, right? We are in profound grief because we've lost a lot of innocence collectively. So I'm just curious, I know you work with a lot of folks one-on-one. What are you seeing, and what's coming to you through this work and the grief that's coming to the surface?
I think I see people who are in such overwhelm that they can't escape their grief any longer. And I think grief and suffering are two very different things. I think, in other cultures, for instance, women used to come together for the purpose of keening, mourning. And the people that I see are a lot of life-threatening issues, a lot of life-threatening diseases, a lot of loss of bearings, loss of home, and they've been thrown into this grief process, which, grief isn't, it doesn't have a specific shape, and I'm sorry, but it doesn't go in predictable stages. It's more like ocean waves that overtake you, and people's biggest fear is that they're going to get drowned in it and never come out the other side, and that's why they don't go into it in the first place.
Yeah.
So I think witnessing and being open to witness and feel your own grief and witness others collectively or individually is, I mean, we can't even begin to heal if we don't do that. And let me see, I need a minute to figure how to say this. I hold both these things at the same time. The amount of pain that we've caused on the planet through our actions to animals and other life forms and other humans is almost unbearable. And at the same time, there's always in every single moment this opportunity to witness or just be there, to let somebody go into that grief and like help them, guide them through it. And it may be a week, it may be months, it may be years, but there is a coming out of it, and there is a transformation that happens in that process. And then when you dip into it again, it's like, oh, I've been here before. I know how to swim in these waters.
Mm-hmm.
But somebody usually has to be there when you haven't chosen to go there and it's just on you.
Yeah.
You know? So that's a lot of what's present. Somebody said something, one of my students said something I thought was brilliant a couple nights ago. She said, I'm grieving myself into my body. I realized that I have been trying to, for the last 6 months, jump out of my body every single day. And she said, the only way I can get into my body is grieving. And I thought that was a brilliant phrase, grieving into body. Yeah. And somebody else said, being willing to soften. And that was another phrase that I thought was quite brilliant for these times. I'm not sure that we've lost so much innocence. I think we've lost a fairy tale and a myth.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's an apt correction. Yeah.
But in the big picture, I have to say, I don't know if what's happening, I can't label it. If what's going on is good, bad, right, wrong, all I know is that it is, and that I don't think I'm even supposed to know. That's where I love the Lakota view that life is a mystery, and you agree to enter it fully, jump all in. And the more I'm on this planet, the less I know.
Yeah.
Isn't that great? That sounds like fortune cookie. The more you live, the less you'll know.
The less you friggin' know, man. And top 10 tips aren't going to get you anything, right? So I know I just made a joke about top 10 tips.
But you want me to list them?
No, what I actually think would be helpful is
I apologize.
No, I dig it. What I actually think would be helpful is for you to just share, like, because it is cray, and so just as an example, a lot of our work with our clients, right? And we're talking huge Fortune 500s and small private equity and venture capital, right? The places who are very like the rarefied air and talking about how even people with a ton of resources
are
are overwhelmed.
Yeah.
A ton of skills and um, exposure to solutions and availability of learning, right? People who literally have the ability to reach out pretty much throughout their lives to solve what they need to solve, and they are overwhelmed. And the reason I'm saying, or I'm asking, if there's just a simple practice that you want to offer, right? Again, it's not top 10 tips and it's not you're the end all be all. It's go use this tool. Because like you, I really believe that the solution is in the question and the steps are the tools, right? And no one can do it for us. So I think that'd be valuable. I don't know. No one's asking for it. And people, if you want to ask Rebecca a question, right now's a good time to put it in the comment box and I'll share it. But back to you, Rebecca. What's a practice? Because folks are overwhelmed. Yeah. They don't know how to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's 3 or 4 things that come to mind. One is let time pass.
Oh, say more about that because we don't know what that means.
You can't control everything, and the world is showing you that. And all of these things that you have in your nervous system as have to be done right this moment, or something god awful, blah blah blah, will fall apart. I would say slow down, cut your list in half. Don't speed up out of fear. Slow down, cut your list in half, and make some time in your day where you just sit there and let time pass. And where you let go and you go, I don't know, not mine. I don't know. I don't know. It's one of the most valuable phrases that you can learn and to be okay with.
Are we allowed to not know, to not have the answer?
Yes.
Great.
And another one is to let yourself have your emotions and let yourself actually have them, to cry, to go punch your pillow, to look at your emotions like the weather. They come and they go. I'm having a thunderstorm right now. My sun's out, whatever. It's coming and it's going. And they're not the center of the world. They're your emotional body, and it comes and it goes, and you don't need to fully identify with it. You can just let your feelings be. Let yourself be a feeling person in this time. I think the most important practice that I can give to people is, and if you're on the 15th floor story of a building, you might have to bring a rock up there, get your bare feet on a rock, sit down, close your eyes, connect with your feet on that rock, connect with your breath, connect with your heartbeat and the air around you. Take 5 minutes to do it and just sit there and just be your breath and your heartbeat between that rock and the sky. And just, that's your locator. That's your self-locator. I'm a heartbeat and I'm a breath between earth and sky. And as long as you're in a body, that's true. And things they absolutely cannot, if you're just trying to grab everything you can to resist change, you're just wasting your energy. Things cannot stay the same. They can't. So let them go. I mean, just take even 5 minutes a day, just as Patricia, my teacher, used to say, you do the best you can, call it good, and go to bed.
And then go to bed.
And it's scary out there. We like to think the world's a nice little safe place, but it's only as scary as you lack faith in your ability and your neighbor's ability and your groundhog's ability and deer's ability and flower and tree's ability to be with what is. The more you build your confidence to be with what is, the less scary.
Isn't that funny? We all this resilience training, and believe me, we offer resilience training, but the real essence of it is the ability to be with what is.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's interesting. Well, so I'm going to brag on you for a second. Me. I'm blushing. Rebecca's awesome. If you have enjoyed hearing what she has to share, she teaches House Taught in person with COVID. It's online, and she has a series of courses that she's currently offering around practices for each season, which are really powerful, and they're things that you can do anywhere. I will say that, like, you don't have to be by a stream, although it's always nice to be by a stream. It's never bad. So you can find her on Facebook. You can find her book is on Amazon, Singing into Bone. And if you want to find her and don't know how to find her, you can always find me. I'm pretty findable. Just put in that redhead lady Tevis into your search engine. I do want to tell you the next folks I'm having on. One is going to be a woman who has given herself permission to really live in the world of hip hop and of music making as a white woman, and she's been doing it. I've known her all my life. She was sent into a drug rehab before she ever did drugs. She said she's overcome so much in her life, and she's moving through the world now as really a self-defined human being in the midst of what I would say is a fairly oppositional landscape. And she'll share with you more about that. Her name's Abia, and you can find her music on Spotify. And then the next week, I'm going to have one of the mediation officers from the NYPD. And he's not going to talk about anything, one incident. We're really going to talk about his life. He's a meditator, he's a Buddhist, and how he brings his life all together. So I would love to have you guys along on those. You can follow me on Facebook or LinkedIn or Insta or whatever, or Corporate Yogi on Twitter, whatever. You can find me, and I'll make sure there's a way for you to know about all that. And more than anything, love you, Rebecca. Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, everybody, go be good and give yourself time and watch time pass.
Watch time pass.
Watch time pass. Okay, bye.